A psychology experiment in 1995 started with a man robbing two banks in broad daylight, his face uncovered, looking directly into the security cameras the entire time. He was arrested within hours. When police showed him the footage, he stared at the screen in genuine confusion. He told them he had used lemon juice on his skin, and lemon juice, like the kind used in invisible ink, was supposed to make him invisible to cameras. He was not lying. He believed it completely. A psychologist named David Dunning read about this case in the newspaper and could not stop thinking about one detail. The man wasn't just wrong, he was confident, calm, certain. Dunning wanted to know if this was an isolated case of one very strange criminal, or if it pointed to something happening inside every single one of our brains. So in 1999, Dunning and a graduate student named Dunning-Kruger ran a series of tests at Cornell University. They gave students tests in grammar, logic, and humor. Actual jokes rated for funniness by professional comedians. After each test, they asked every student the same simple question. How well do you think you did compared to everyone else in the room? Here is what they found, and it is the part that still makes psychologists uncomfortable today. The students who scored in the bottom 25%, the ones who actually performed the worst, consistently believed they had outperformed most of the room. On average, they guessed they had scored better than 60% of their peers, while their real scores placed them near the very bottom. They were not lying to the researchers. They were not even lying to themselves on purpose. They simply could not see the gap, because the same lack of skill that caused their poor performance also disabled their ability to judge performance at all, including their own. Now, here is where it gets stranger, and where most people stop the story too early, because they only remember the first half. The students who scored in the top 25%, the ones who were actually excellent, did the opposite. They underestimated themselves. They assumed everyone else found the test just as easy as they did, so they guessed they were only slightly above average, when in reality, they were near the top of the entire group. Skilled people don't see their own skill as remarkable, because to them, it doesn't feel hard. It feels normal. They assume if it's easy for them, it must be easy for everyone, so the gap between themselves and others disappears in their own mind. This created a strange, almost backwards curve. Confidence was highest exactly where competence was lowest, and confidence dipped right around the point where people were starting to realize how much they didn't know. Picture someone learning to play chess for the first time. After one single lesson, they feel like they understand the entire game. They can see the board, they know how the pieces move, and in their mind, that's basically the whole skill. They have no idea that grandmasters spend decades studying positions they haven't even encountered yet, because they don't know those positions exist. Not knowing what you don't know feels exactly the same as knowing everything there is to know. That is the trap, and it is invisible from the inside. Now picture that same person 3 months later. They've played real opponents. They've lost in ways they didn't expect. They've discovered openings, traps, entire strategies they never knew existed. Their actual skill has gone up, but their confidence has crashed, because for the first time, they can see the size of the thing they're trying to learn. This is the part almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important part of the entire effect. The drop in confidence is not a step backward. It is the first real sign of progress, because you cannot become an expert until you can first see how much there is to be an expert in. This single finding, published in 1999, went on to become one of the most cited psychology papers of the next 2 decades. Not because it was complicated, but because almost everyone who read it immediately recognized someone in their own life. The coworker who talks for 10 minutes straight in a meeting about a subject he learned about yesterday. The person online arguing with confidence about a topic you've actually studied for years, while you sit there wondering how they can possibly sound so sure. And then, almost always a few seconds later, comes the second, quieter, more uncomfortable thought. Where am I doing exactly that right now? Because here is the part that makes this different from most psychology findings. This is not a story about other people. You cannot read about the Dunning-Kruger effect and walk away thinking it explains someone else, because the entire mechanism is built on the fact that you can't see it in yourself in real time. The incompetent person in every single one of these studies wasn't a fool. He was a regular person doing what every human brain does by default, judging his own ability using the only tool he had, which was his own limited understanding. There was no outside reference point, because building one requires the very expertise he didn't have yet. So what actually breaks the pattern? It is not intelligence. It is not even effort. Researchers found that the only thing that reliably closes the gap is exposure to real, specific feedback. Not vague feedback, not a gut feeling, but a direct collision with the edges of your own knowledge. The musician who finally plays next to someone genuinely better and hears for the first time exactly what they cannot yet do. The new employee who sits in a room with senior people solving a problem in ways they never considered. The writer who reads one piece of work so far beyond their own that the gap becomes impossible to ignore. That collision is uncomfortable, almost every single time, but it is the only door into the next stage, the one where confidence finally starts to realign itself with actual ability. There is a strange kind of relief hidden inside this discovery, even though it doesn't feel that way at first. If you've recently started questioning yourself in an area where you used to feel completely certain, that discomfort is not a sign that you're falling behind. In nearly every documented case, it's the opposite. It's the exact moment competence begins to catch up with confidence. Because doubt this specific only shows up once you've learned enough to know where the real edges are. And if you're sitting there right now, scrolling through this, thinking of one or two people in your life who clearly need to hear this effect explained to them, that instinct, that exact thought, is worth pausing on for one more second. Because the people who benefit most from learning about the Dunning-Kruger effect were never the ones searching for it. They're the ones who, somewhere in the middle of watching this, quietly started wondering if it might apply to them too. There's one more layer to this that researchers only uncovered years later, and it might be the most useful part of the entire story. The effect isn't about being a smart person or a foolish person. It's domain-specific. The same surgeon who can read a room of symptoms in seconds might be completely, confidently wrong about how to fix his own car. The same mechanic who can diagnose an engine by sound alone might be utterly convinced he understands nutrition or investing, simply because he's never collided with the edges of those subjects the way he has with engines. Nobody is permanently stuck on one side of this curve. Everybody is standing on both sides of it at once, just in different rooms of their own life. So here is the only practical filter that actually works, the one Dunning himself eventually pointed to in later interviews. Before trusting your own certainty about something, ask yourself a single question. Have I ever been wrong about this specific subject before? And did someone more experienced ever show me exactly where? If the answer is no, that's not proof you're right. In most cases, it's the opposite. It usually just means you haven't collided with the wall yet. The truly confident, the people who are actually right as often as they feel, share one quiet habit almost nobody talks about. They ask more questions in the rooms where they're supposedly the expert than anywhere else, because they already know what's sitting just past the edge of their map, even if they can't see exactly what it is yet. That's not weakness. That's the entire skill.